Welcome everyone to the Brain Health Frontiers lecture where we really look at the cutting edge of neuroscience. We're going to have a great program today, really exciting guest speaker. My name is Andrew Nevin. I'm a research professor here at the Center for Brain Health. Sadly, I'm not a neuroscientist. I look at the economics of better brain health and better performance, but I have the great privilege to be surrounded by so many fantastic neuroscientists on that. We're going to have a few minutes at the end for Q&A, which I'll moderate. For all our online audience, really fantastic that you've joined us. We're very appreciative. We'll make sure, please put your questions in the chat box. We always get to at least one or two questions from the online audience every time. I'd also like to welcome, we have some special guests today from TWU, Collin College, and Dallas College, so please give them a big hand. One of our big focal points in the type of work we do is with young people of all ages, and it's really exciting, our work with these various colleges. And of course with UTD over here, we have some of our graduate students here who have also joined us, so please give them a big hand today on that. So for those of you who are new to the Center for Brain Health, we're a cognitive neuroscience center, research center, and we focus on better brain health and better brain performance across the entire lifespan. And we've been doing it for over 30 years. We intervene with various populations, including the university college students, middle school students, warriors. We're very active in the military community, corporations, so across the entire lifespan. And we're founded by the amazing Dr. Sandy Chapman, who's just entered, so please give her a big hand. And she's so busy, she's a little bit late today, so she crunches her cookie on the sound. We'll forgive her for that. So we have absolutely amazing guest speakers today. It's a little bit like Animal Farm. I mean, all our guest speakers are amazing, but some are more amazing than others are. We have Dr. Paul Zak, who's a professor at, I have to read normally when I come up here I don't use notes, but Dr. Zak has done so much in his life that I have to consult my notes a little bit here. But he's a professor at Claremont Graduate University in California. I know there are less and less flights from California to Texas, but we managed to get him out here for today. So he is a neuroscientist. He is in the top 0.3% of cited scientists globally on that. So out of 300 scientists, out of 1,000 scientists, he would be in the top 3. So give him a big hand for that. But a little bit like Dr. Chapman, he's been very focused on taking the neuroscience out of the laboratory into other places. So he's worked a lot with Fortune 500 companies. He's also worked with the military. He's taken his neuroscience to the jungles of Papua New Guinea. I guess it's one thing we have in common. We've both been to Papua New Guinea. I don't know if anyone else in the room has been there, which is amazing. He's written 4 books, which we'll talk about. He's a regular on the TED Talks on that. But one interesting fact about Dr. Paul is he actually is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, so he gets to vote for the Oscars. So if you didn't get your choice as winning this year, please blame him. He probably contributed to that. And he's written the neuroscience dialogue for at least 2 Hollywood movies on that. So I had the privilege, I've known Dr. Paul remotely over the past year, but I had the privilege last night of having dinner with him. Really an amazing person, incredibly interesting, and I think we have an amazing session. Now, I know you could go on for hours, so I will cut you off at the time that we take the questions on there. But please give it up, big hand for Dr. Paul Zak today.
Give me a hug because that's what we're going to do. Thank you. Well, thank you for that very warm introduction. Oh, that's a lot of feedback. Welcome, everybody. I'm happy to be here and be part of this brain health revolution that you're leading. Has anyone heard about the debate between the cardiologists and the neurologists about which organ is more important? Students, you guys know. The heart or the brain, what's more important? So the cardiologist said, hey, the brain's just an operating system for the heart. No heart, you're dead. And the neurologist said, what's more important? You can have any pump moving blood around and oxygen. The brain is the most important organ. So I think I and you guys agree, the brain's the most important organ. So let's focus on brain health as a goal for all of humanity. I'll tell you a little about what we've been doing in the last 20 years or so that helps contribute to that brain health goal. I've written a bunch of popular books. You can find those. This book on happiness comes out May 6th. It's a manual, kind of like the work you do here. It's kind of an owner's manual How can you live a happier life? So has exercises. So reading the scientific literature, I think there are 5 real pillars to happiness. Diet, exercise, sleep, having a rich social network, and having a sense of purpose and acting on it. So let's just knock those down. Diet, exercise, sleep. You guys know that already, right? If you don't know that, you should go to a different lecture. This is not going to help you. And there's plenty of apps you can use to track those. So all are super important. I'm not saying they're not important. When we look at research, for example, recently out of Oxford University, at the factors that contribute to happiness, about 50% of self-reported happiness is due to the quality of your social relationships. There's leverage there, right? There's a lot of leverage. So what's the quality of your social relationships right now?
What do you mean?
I don't know. That's a big question. Is it a 7? Is it a 3? We don't know. So if social relationships are so important to thrive, to be happy, what do we do about that? What does rich mean? How many contacts in my phone? How many people follow me on social media? So we're going to dig into that, and I'll talk a little about sense of purpose as well today. So obviously, these 5 core pillars are not independent of each other. People who do not have rich social lives are at greater risk for depression and anxiety disorders. People who are depressed don't sleep well, they don't eat well, they don't exercise, right? So again, there's a lot of leverage at the level of social emotional engagement with others as social creatures, and that's not just a term, that is anatomically correct description of the human brain. We are much more sensitive to social information than just about any other creatures on the planet. The exception might be bees and ants, but they're all related. At least the ones in the same nest are. So we've got to really think about how do we lean into the quality of our social lives as a way to improve our ability to thrive. And yet we're not thriving. As Professor Nevin said, we see high levels of burnout on the job. At the same time, we're seeing mental health disorders really exploding all around the world. As I mentioned, we also see metabolic syndrome, obesity, diabetes. Look at that, look at Texas. And I think what's really compelling is the U.S. has been below replacement fertility rates since 2010. We're not having enough babies. So just from a societal perspective, if we want our economy to keep running, if we want to, Sandy and I want to retire someday, we want people to work and send me stuff to my home, and all these nice young people are going to have really high wages because there's not going to be enough people. So we've really got to nurture the humans we have. I think it's not just a good thing to do. I think it's necessary for our societies to survive, to really think about how we can address keeping people healthy, allowing them to have the knowledge and the technologies to really thrive. Now, this data is skewed because it ends at 2020, and obviously we're in pandemic times, but data that goes beyond that suggests we're also not engaging as much with each other as we should be. So we've got to address this issue. And it turns out, unsurprisingly, that people who are lonely also don't work so well. So I want to suggest a different way to think about brain health. I'm going to think about it backwards. Instead of talking about starting with the brain and then doing factors that might improve brain activity, the ability to thrive, the ability to be happy, what we've done is go from behavior back to the brain. So over the last 20 years, I've measured over 50,000 brain observations, and from that have been able to identify, by observing behavior and measuring brain activity, how the brain values social emotional experiences. So I'm a behavior guy. I'm not a feelings guy. I'm not a diagnostic guy. I want to understand why humans do what they do. And when we run experiments and we ask people, we give them a task, we say, well, why'd you do A or B or C? The most common answer is, I don't know. That doesn't help me. And that's why we measure brain activity, to identify not only why people do what they do, but also to categorize the variety of the human experience. Why are people doing different things, right? Why does Andrew like chocolate ice cream and I like vanilla? It's kind of a trivial example, but it still gets to this deep variety in how humans experience life. So we were able to, over many years, find a network in the brain that I've called immersion. I gave it a name because it's a convolution of multiple signals in the brain that I'll talk about that by all accounts appears to be how humans value social emotional experiences. This is where I'm going. If our social emotional life is so important, I can't do anything about it unless I can measure it. If I can measure it, then I can create interventions, technologies to help improve it. So here's our goal. So that image is a PET scan from unpublished data from my lab of oxytocin binding in the human brain using a radioligand. And what we showed is that this evaluation network really has two core components. So I'm summarizing almost 20 years of research. Happy to take more questions on the details of this if people are interested. But to value an experience, the first thing is I need to be attentive or present. But if I'm distracted looking around here, I can't have a nice conversation with you people. Right? And the second, that experience has to generate what I call emotional resonance. Right? It's got to be sufficiently valuable to me. So emotions are how the brain assigns weights to the things we're doing. Right? So if you think of highly emotional experiences in your life, getting married, a birth of a child, could be negative experiences, 9/11, right? You remember those things. They're saved in memory in a very particular way that make them more easily accessible. So those are valuable experiences. Emotion, the high emotionality says they're valuable. So once we identified this network, again, in laboratory studies, lots of published research, go to Google Scholar, you can find them all. Then we said, well, what can we do with this? So this work was originally funded by DARPA, the Defense Department's research arm. And we found it because we were tasked with identifying combinations of signals in the brain that would accurately and consistently predict what people would do after a message or an experience. So we were contracted to the DoD to create a neurologic testbed to give warfighters a new superpower called persuasion. This is a really important thing. Let's use words rather than weapons, at first at least, to try to get people to cooperate with US goals. All right, how do we persuade others to do that? What we found in all this research was that when that immersion network, this convolution of neuroelectrical signals, was sufficiently high, then you can influence people's behavior. And we convolve these signals to maximize our predictive accuracy of those outcomes. So what you value is what you do. That's the short story. So if I want to, therefore, motivate people or measure your social emotional experiences, I've got to know how that's valued, and if I can change that valuation, then presumably you'll do more of it. So in my lab, we start by measuring changes in neurochemicals. I really like neurochemicals because they're very concrete. Either there was a change in some neurochemical or there was not. If we have those changes, then we can manipulate those neurochemicals pharmacologically, which we've done. It tells us then where to optimize collection of brain activity for those regions that have high densities of those neurochemicals. So we've done a ton of work to identify and convince ourselves and the scientific community that in fact this network that I've called immersion, this convolution of electrical signals driven by dopamine and oxytocin, it really seems to be a core part of this evaluation network for social emotional experiences. So if I'm going to walk over here. If I have a drink of water and you guys weren't here, no real social emotional value in that, right? Delicious water. But the experience I'm having now, I'm engaged with other people, right? And so that's going to be a different evaluation network. So drinking water has its own evaluation network, or doing things by yourself. So once we found this network, we created software lets people measure what the brain values. This is used to improve education or corporate training, to improve communications. But we also want to ask about the effect on people's happiness and ability to thrive. So thriving is a sequence of positive social emotional experiences that allow people to really flourish in life. So that means I'm putting energy into what I'm doing, getting out of bed with energy. So I'm not very interested in stress unless it is clinically meaningful. We all have stress. Stress is fine. Stress means this is important for you. But this neurologic state I'm calling immersion is a metabolic investment in an activity. If you're not excited, if you're not passionate, if you're not putting that energy into an activity, it's not going to be sufficiently valuable to you. And if you're just sitting around, this is, what's your name?
Laura.
This is Laura's brother-in-law who plays video games all day sitting on the couch. That dude's under-stimulated, right? He needs more stress in his life. I'm just making this up, right? So, and then we have people who are overstressed, but for most of us, our stress resolves on its own, right? So again, there are people who face chronic stress. That's a different issue. But we need these physiologic investments in our social emotional life to build up the resilience to have the ability to have emotional balance, as you've talked about here at the center. So if I don't have that resilience, it's just like not physically working out, right? If I'm not exercising, then my cardiovascular system starts to degrade, my muscles start to degrade, and then if I have to run away or do something or lift something heavy, I can't do it. So the brain is working exactly the same way. When I have the ability to have that emotional balance, to be what I call emotionally fit, then I can absorb the ability to do difficult things or to sustain a long conversation or to do well in school or do whatever it needs. Those are activities that require social emotional value. So as we started working on this, so this is 1 second frequency data. I'll tell you how we get it in a second. So rich data we're collecting all day, 10 hours a day at 1 second frequency. There's a technical word for that I won't use, but a blank load of data. So what do you do with that? You apply machine learning, you generate predictive models from that. But as we started doing this work, we realized that it wasn't useful. What are you going to do? Build your own machine learning model and, I don't know, do what with it? So I started thinking about psychiatry. If I were a psychiatrist, how would I know if my patient was getting better? So I have many friends who are psychiatrists. I don't know what that means about me, but I thought, these poor people have no assays, right? Every other field of medicine, you have assays. You can measure something. But in psychiatry, we have clinical evaluation. These are smart people. They're trained. They're doing evaluations, but there's no objective measure of depression, anxiety. No generalizable. There are some biomeasures, but not generalizable. Now, what do psychiatrists understand? They understand integers. They can count. So what if we create a count variable? We could identify how much social emotional value you need to have those aspects of thriving. High mood, high energy. So our machine learning analysis showed that this 1 second frequency set of signals, I still haven't told you how we measure them, but I will in a minute, predicts whether you're happy or sad, whether you have high energy or low energy with 98% accuracy. It's dead on. Right? Because it was designed to predict behaviors. So again, I don't want to ask you much. I want to observe you and figure out the neurocorrelates that are associated with what you're doing. So it turned out that the answer for thriving is 6. You need 6 well-defined, high-value moments per day. If you're getting that, your energy's up, your mood's up, you're building up that social-emotional resilience, right? If you're getting 4, you're maintaining, you're fine, you're okay. 3 or less, and you have depressive symptoms. You have low mood and low energy. So now we have a very simple goal. So I haven't told you how to measure, but I will in a moment, which is, and a way to quantify that everyone understands. 6 high-value moments. So we have two more things we have to cover, and then we'll hopefully have a dialogue about all of this. The first is, great, so I have to, spend all day in the lab, 10 hours a day in the lab, and have you hook up weird electrodes to me? I mean, Bonnie would like that, but everybody else would not like that. So how do we measure it? Number one, and then what is the definition of a high-value moment? So the first is that we like drugs. So it turns out you can pay people to take drugs in your lab. I know, shocking. So we use pharmaceuticals to trace out the pathways from this network in the brain to the cranial nerves. And some of these cranial nerves will pass through the heart. So we carefully mapped out and then wrote algorithms that let us infer the activity of frontal dopamine and oxytocin from signals we're pulling from smartwatches. Right? Your brain's connected to a body, and the body and brain talk to each other primarily through the cranial nerves, through the spinal cord also, but through the cranial nerves. And if I can get a time series on heart rate, then I can look at these subtle acceleration, deceleration of the heart that we trace to the actions of dopamine and oxytocin. So if you can give me a time series, I'm not going to use heart rate or heart rate variability, but I'm going to look at these third and fourth order changes in sympathetic, parasympathetic balance, right? That we trace, because we measured things simultaneously, we trace back to this network in the brain. So we wrote software and created an app, of course called SIX, because that's the key answer, that allows anybody, it's free, to measure the key value moments that you have. Now, Laura's key value moments and mine are going to be different. So the app links to your calendar and to your location to tell you what you're doing that's most valuable to you. By the way, quite different than what you think is most valuable to you, right? Almost all of your brain activity is not open to conscious awareness. So if I ask people, what's your rich social life? How rich is it? You don't know. How much am I enjoying this experience? I don't know. Compared to what? So again, that's a feeling question. I don't believe in feelings. I think it's just a made-up, stupid word. I believe in emotions because I can measure it, right? So I want to measure that emotional response, that physiologic response, and not depend on self-reported feelings. So think of my poor wife who has to live with me. I have no feelings at all. It's awful. Okay, so we have a technology. 60% of the US population has a smartwatch or fitness wearable that we support. I'm going to give you a QR code at the end. You guys can just try it. It's free. So my goal is to get 1 billion people on the planet to use this in the next 3 years. We just launched this. To have a language and a technology to measure those things that are most valuable to you. So when Laura goes and meets her friends for a coffee this afternoon, she'll go, oh, that was a key moment. Oh, I like doing this. I should do that more. Right? Not going to be a key moment for me necessarily. I don't know her friends. Maybe they're nice. Maybe I don't know. So the app's going to build a catalog for you of those factors that are most valuable to you, so you can lean into those things. So now we have two interesting, weird takeaways. One is that, as the scientists here know, your brain adapts to the experiences you're having. So over time, you've got to actually engage in new experiences to continue to thrive. Right? Laura's friends are awesome. They're wonderful. You should see them a lot. But you might want to meet some new people, right? New people are kind of interesting, or go to a new place, or a different coffee shop, or, I don't know, go out for happy hour, do something different. So again, if we're talking about brain health, we've got to build up that resilience so that individuals are able to continue to grow and have that brain adapt so that is able to weather the storms that we all face in our lives. Right? Negative events, we have that emotional balance. So the app is called SIX. It is used today on 6 continents. It is an effective way to have a discussion about thriving that is objective, that is specific to the individual. That's not scary. Right? I don't want to talk about mental health. I don't want to diagnose people. I don't want to fix people. I want to give them a tool to stay out of the medical system, to have this conversation about emotional fitness so that people can really, truly thrive in the way that fits them. Not the way I want them to thrive, but what's appropriate for them. We have built in the app an ability to share your data with others. Right? We are social creatures. We're not on this journey to brain health alone. we can include other people. So the app, you can invite people to use it, will show kind of green or red, right? So Laura's my friend, and I see that she hasn't had any key moments. She's kind of in the red zone for 3 days. I could call her up. Hi, my friend. Are you doing okay? Looks like you shared your data with me. Looks like you're not doing so well. I'll join your coffee group. Let's chat. Yeah. Or Andrew's been in the green zone for 5 days in a row. Holy crap, you're the best week ever. You're awesome, dude. Let's go celebrate. Right? So we need to engage with others. And I think as we do more work from home, more virtual interactions, less travel, maybe that's a good thing, but we also need that social interactions to be healthy. Okay, let me get to purpose. Purpose is what gives you energy besides work and family, essentially. What's your avocation? What do you love doing? Is it sailing? Is it fishing? Is it making music on the guitar? Whatever those things are, it's also an important component. So let's say I want to be a really good rock climber. I'm going to take up rock climbing. How do I do that? Well, I join a rock climbing gym. I meet some people. They help train me. Almost all people's purpose in life involves other people. Right? It's either learning from other people or helping other people or both. And so that purpose component also fits well into a measure of thriving. I'm engaging with other people. I'm doing other things with those people that are new, that are challenging. This is really building up that social emotional health by doing those experiences that are difficult. That builds up my resilience. So purpose and social connection, really important. We're device agnostic. We don't care what we have. And you have these little bubbles that just tell you how much value you're getting from experiences, when they occurred, so you can do more of them. Here's my friends. Look at my dear friend Connor. No key moments? Oh my gosh. He needs to call. None of my friends have key moments in this little screenshot I took. My friends are suffering. What a bad friend I am, right? I'm not helping them out. And so this app learns about you, right? So it starts out with population averages for what those key moments are. Oh, a key moment is, think of this, so this is a time series on immersion, right? Think of this key moment as median plus 1 standard deviation for 3 minutes or longer. It's not exactly that, but it's close enough. So here's your time series, and I see this big peak, and it lasts long enough, I'm investing a lot of resources metabolically into this experience, right? Went to a bar, met a super cute guy or girl, or I was rock climbing, and I finally got this wall with myself, I'm so excited, right? So one of the keys here is that for any experience that's valuable, if you add a social component, it almost always has higher immersion, right? So you can have a key moment by yourself, but if you add in other people, it's almost always more valuable. So this is an app just to remind us, essentially, not to be stupid. Talk to people, engage with others, do interesting things, have new adventures, map it, see what works for you. What works for you is not going to what works for me, and that's okay. And now you have to begin to innovate. You've got to actually add some more new things into your system of living. And by the way, we had a recent paper showing that immersion is contagious. In this case, this was measuring salespeople at high-end luxury stores. So the luxury store question was, why do 20% of our salespeople sell 80% of the merchandise? That's an interesting question. Are they nicer? Are they prettier? Are they, who knows? So this is high-end luxury. I can't ask the customers to put on some kind of weird watch. It's a real store. This is ecologically allowed. We really did this in a real high-end store. We had permission, 2 different stores. The average purchase amount in these stores in this study was $323. The maximum was over $2,500. This is real money. But emotional states in the literature seem to be contagious. Could that experience, could this contagion effect explain who buys? It turns out that by measuring the neurologic immersion of salespeople, we could predict which customer bought with 80% accuracy, and there was a linear relationship between the immersion of the salesperson and the amount of money spent by the customer. In other words, If I'm having a great time with Laura, she's having a great time with me. Almost always, right? We reinforce each other. So that's more evidence that the social component is essential to really thrive. Right? Almost nobody thrives alone. Rarely there are hermits, right? But they're weirdos and they're not super happy people generally. They have issues, right? We need to be around other people. We sometimes forget that, right? I think particularly, Americans, we know we're very independent. I don't need anybody. I can do stuff on my own. But in fact, we do need people from a real physiologic sense if we're going to thrive. We have an enterprise interface. We have organizations using it for the reasons that I said. There's not enough babies, and we have very low unemployment rates. And by the way, immigration is going to be on hold for quite a while. Right? You've seen the news. You're aware. I can't import new humans. So if you've got humans working for you, you should really ensure that they are not only physically healthy, but emotionally healthy. Or they're going to quit, they're going to burn out, or they're going to go work somewhere else. So by having an enterprise interface with anonymized data, it allows organizations to have an objective measure of thriving. Am I creating a workplace where people are really flourishing, where they are putting energy in what they're doing, they're excited, right? And with this physiologic measure called psychological safety, that's table stakes. If you're so uncomfortable in this environment that you don't have the neural bandwidth to have an amazing experience, not good for you. Right? But if you do, as long as you have moderate levels of psychological safety, then let's create an environment where you're doing cool stuff with cool people, you're solving problems for customers, you're working with your team, right? Those will give you those high value moments because you have a sense of purpose. And in fact, the data show that people tend to have more high value moments at work than at leisure. Why? At work, I have people and I have goals. I'm making a metabolic investment. At leisure, I'm hanging out, watching sports, talking, this is fine. But it's not that goal-directed focus. So for the purpose of life, for that high social emotional value, it's important. So for the young people, here's the only useful tip you're going to get from all day to day. Old people, just ignore. If you find that cute guy or girl and you want to ask them out on a first date, you want to get a key moment, do something adventurous. Take a helicopter ride, go bungee jumping, go, skydiving with that person. This is like 5 first dates all squished into one, right? So I've given this advice to a lot of students, and a couple years ago at Claremont where I teach, this young man, undergraduate, saw me across campus. Dr. Zach, I want to talk to you. And he said, you gave this talk a couple years ago, and I went on this date with this girl, and I took her on a helicopter ride at sunset over Santa Monica, and we're still together 2 years later. It was great. And this guy was pretty nerdy looking, science. His girlfriend was gorgeous. I'm like, wow, this really works. So yeah, it works. So think about, and for all of us who are older, think about engineering those high value moments with your friends, with your romantic partner, with your children. They're really valuable. Those things that you recall in memory very easily, that trip to Disney World, the amazing adventure you had going to South Africa, those memories are there because they're high value moments. So if you can begin to engineer those, then you will have the opportunity to truly thrive. So here's some data we find these are for working adults. Higher job satisfaction. This is for highest quartile of people on getting key moments versus those in the lowest quartile. Fewer sick days, more satisfied with their lives outside of work. So all the factors that we'd like to see. So I think for Andrew Nevin, here's the economics, right? We want healthy societies that sustain themselves. To do that, we need to work. We need to engage with others. We need to create environments where people can really thrive. So, oops. Why is there not one more slide? Oh, yeah. So here's the stuff that we built into it. It's personalized. It learns about you. It's got a trained AI assistant that will give you advice. It motivates participation because you're getting constant feedback. No weird questions. It just runs in the background all day. It's designed to be predictive. So it's proactive. The AI system will give you advice. And the goal here is to prevent both mental health disorders like depression and anxiety, but it turns out that a variety of medical disorders are preceded by social withdrawal, a lack of social value, Parkinson's, autoimmune disease, congestive heart failure are all preceded by slow levels of social withdrawal where that patient's brain, because we believe in the neurologist, not the cardiologist, is adapting to this new environment of less energy, lower metabolic rate. And so we have now a way to quantify that and intervene early in this vague notion that we've now quantified on, are you sufficiently socially, emotionally engaged to be healthy? So here's some key takeaways for you. Do new stuff. Learn a new language. Volunteer to school. Learn to play guitar. Come to the Center for Brain Health every week. Go to seminars. Learn something new. And it's free. So sadly, I don't care about money. I just care about getting 1 billion people to use this app. So if you've got a phone, you can try it right now. You need some kind of wearable because we've got to get physiologic signals from you. So I would love to have a dialogue with you on how together we can improve society, improve individual lives by focusing on improving brain health. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Let's just give it up again for Dr. Zach. I'll give you a big hug here. I was highly engaged. I don't have any wearables. We discussed this before, so I don't know whether I feel like I have a lot of moments, but this really resonated with me. But it also reminded me, I don't know how many people were here for Professor Matt Lee's talk on flourishing. He's the world flourishing leader down at Baylor. And he actually uses Professor Zach's technology, and he stood up at this podium, and he said he had a safety value of 4. 4 out of 100, right?
He was stressed out.
He was stressed out. And I still feel bad to this day that someone comes to the Center for Brain Health is so stressed out with this audience that their safety value is 4. But I hope it was an engaging moment for him. So what an incredible talk. I want to throw it open for questions, dialogue, comments on the thing, particularly from the younger people in the audience and our guests there. And
can we give Laura the first question? Because I picked on her the entire time because she sat up front. How are you?
Hi.
Do you have a question, Laura?
You know I do. How does this differ between introverts and extroverts?
Great question. So one would think, so the question is there a difference between introverts and extroverts for the number of key moments they get? The short answer is no. So extroverts generally want more social interaction, introverts want a little less. We do find that there are differences by 2 personality traits. So individuals who are by personality agreeable and empathic tend to have more high-value moments. These are very warm individuals. They're more emotional. They tend to have more friends. They also tend to be happier. So we can aspire to be more agreeable and more empathic and get more key moments. Great question. Cicely? Oh, there's a mic. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm not paying attention.
Hey, you mentioned fertility rates. What is the relationship between emotional fitness and having children?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so the question is the difference between emotional fitness and relationship and having children. I've written a bunch about this. It's a little bit complicated, but I think it's important. So let me take 3 minutes to answer it. Why would evolution care about happiness? Like humans, we're kind of obsessed with happiness, right? Are we happy? Are you happy? How happy are you? But evolutionarily, all we should care about is survival and reproduction. Now, it turns out, who do you want to reproduce with? A disagreeable, unhappy, neurotic person, or someone who's happy and... Right, so the reason that we actually care about happiness is that is the people we want to be around and who want to be around us, who give us an opportunity to reproduce. So happiness is actually part of the evolutionary program. So if we're able to influence our own ability to be happy, have more of these high-value key moments, we're building up that brain health, we're more interesting to be around, and we probably have better genes, better ability to reproduce. So yeah, so if you can avoid the people who are neurotic and unhappy because we absorb those emotions as well, right, we're empathic, then you'll actually be happier. So some of those are family members. We can't avoid them, but everybody else, you're like, hey, this is a person I just don't want to hang around with. If people are happy, excited, enjoying life, yeah, be around those individuals.
Okay, next we'll go take an online question here.
Sure.
Really interesting question as well. Does timing matter? So are 6 good moments all in a couple of hours versus spread out over the day? Does it make a difference? Do you concentrate your good moments and then you can kind of veg out?
where's my workout guy? Dan, you're in great shape. When you do a physical workout, what do? You lift weights, you run?
Kettlebells, weights.
Kettlebells, yeah. So can you do kettlebells for 8 hours in a row? No. Because what? Muscles fatigue. So neurons fatigue in the same way, right? So when you have this high metabolic investment, a key rate, we see this refractory period in the data where you actually get below baseline, those neurons have fatigued. And so generally key moments are spread out during the day. You don't have to be all in the morning, all in the afternoon. The data on this are kind of interesting for working people.
But can someone thrive? Are there people who concentrate, their key moments end up concentrating, but they're still thriving?
So the people like Laura, who are very sweet, empathic, and agreeable, sometimes have these very long, like an hour-long key moment, which is really unusual. Those are the kind of super responders, so it certainly is possible. But for most of us regular humans, we're having these episodic moments. Yeah. Great question. All right, Cecilia.
I think you talked about this at the beginning, but because we didn't know what the key moments were yet, I didn't fully understand. Can you explain again why the key moments are measured just when you're happy and not when you're having a stress? It just seems like a stress or a negative moment would also be measured in the same way. So can you explain again why we know that's a positive moment and not negative?
Good question, and thank you for encouraging me to clarify that. It doesn't have to be positive. It has to be valuable. So we spoke at this at dinner, so I'm going to use the same example. So we have a 6 super responder who sometimes emails me all the time, this wonderful lady in upstate New York, who was in California 2 weeks ago, and I had lunch with her because she's interesting and weird, and I like her. She got in a minor car accident. Some older woman kind of backed into her, and she would make sure this lady was okay. Did she's in the ambulance? Is the car okay, right? And she emailed me. She goes, hey, I had a key moment in my car accident. Oh, yeah, for sure. That was valuable. Your brain's like, okay, I'm on. This is important. So this is really importance, not happy or sad. Now, in general, most of those key moments are correlating with positive experiences, but they also could be negative. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is, I sort of avoided the stress issue. So we also have this measure of stress in there. We're calling it safety. It's the reciprocal of stress. And like most things in biology, it's this inverted U-curve between stress or physiologic arousal and performance, multiple measure, cognitive performance, physical performance. Right? If I'm overstressed, I'm just in survival mode. I don't have a lot of bandwidth to do something else. If I'm under stress, it's the brother-in-law of Laura, and he's just sitting on the couch doing nothing, drinking beer all day. Right? So that's not good. That guy's not thriving. So the reason that you have these episodic periods of high moments is that it is metabolically costly, then I need to recover. Right? So it is physiologically arousing. Right? Dopamine is an arousal neurochemical. I'm all in, I'm excited, I'm passionate, I'm excited about what's going on. So we identified the threshold when this is high enough and long enough that this is really important to you. And those tend to be memorable, by the way. So when you look at that, your app, you go, oh yeah, 1 o'clock, I was doing this thing. Yeah, that's right, it was pretty cool. Now, ex ante, it's hard to know what those are. Right? If I just ask you without the data, what are the high points of your day? I don't know. Again, compared to what? What's my anchor? Was my lunch a 3 or a 19? I don't know. But my brain knows, because the brain has to modulate that energy flow, right? I have such high metabolic overhead in the brain that when you see these high investments, it's really meaningful. And again, it took us 15 plus years to figure this out. I did 10,000 blood draws in the last 20 years measuring neurochemicals. I mean, a lot of science behind this that I'm almost avoiding talking about, but for the scholars in the room, just go to Google Scholar and download the papers. Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen, question over
sorry.
here we're going to take.
Where's the mic? Yes, sir, hi.
Hello. I know how what.
I'm going to give you the mic so the whole room can hear you.
Hello, Tim Sampson. I know what my take is on it, but I'd love to hear yours. You mentioned several things related to having the 6 key moments and being involved in work is related to home life and how those deals. Do you feel like as our generation that maybe retirement becomes overrated and that being involved, not because we need it financially, but to be able to have those 6 key moments?
What a great question. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think so. I think there's increasing evidence that people who retire who don't have another high-purpose activity decline both cognitively and physically as well. And so I think for people who are thinking about retirement, having that other activity, that volunteering or mentoring or coaching or whatever that is, I think is really important. So you do have a reason to get out of bed every morning. So I'm 63, and I was thinking, I should retire at 67. Like, I want to do a lot of stuff, I want to travel. And I was talking to this friend of mine recently, and he goes, well, what would you do differently? I skip meetings. We all want to skip meetings, right? I don't want to go to any more meetings. But everything else of my 3 jobs, I would do all 3 of those, and I work 7 days a week now, and I would just keep doing that. So I'm like, maybe I shouldn't retire. Maybe I just keep doing what I'm doing. They keep paying me, which is crazy, right? Well, I don't know why, so. Thank you for that question, sir.
All right, I'm going to take an online question
Yeah.
here. Have you considered implementing 6, particularly for people who are incarcerated? Or talk about that group or any other interesting populations that you're taking 6 to now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think
You don't have to say that's a great question every time. We all know they're all great questions.
I haven't heard that question before, so I think it's nice to be pushed, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think we should think seriously about even people who are in prisons, about helping them thrive so that they have the social emotional skills to actually, if they're going to get out of prison, to actually, thrive outside of prison. We don't want to send people out damaged. So as you know, we've spoken, we're beginning to work with the military and veterans, and I think that's another population that really get beat up a lot in their jobs. And I think having tools and the ability to share and support each other in this journey towards emotional health is super important. We have a number of police departments using our technology, and for them, they're going to have high-value moments. Things are get exciting if you're a police officer, but they should have high-value moments outside of work as well, right? So it shouldn't just be at work, but you should get some of those outside of work. So you're investing in your family and your friends and whatever else you're doing. Otherwise, again, it's not sustainable. If I get all of my value from working and I don't get value in the rest of my life, I think that's not a very sustainable approach.
All right, I'll take a question from SW.
And this really is going to be a great question. It may be a comment and then get your feedback on it, because we talked a little bit earlier. We were thinking about people who maybe are set for retirement. What about the group coming into the workforce? Because they're demanding more that management do something for them to take care of their brains and their minds and their mental well-being. How much agency should leadership versus incoming staff have over that dynamic? And what are you seeing in the workforce in terms of this real insistence on working from home versus maybe making the workplace also a great place to thrive?
It's a terrible question. Yeah, there's a couple questions there, and we actually have worked with a number of organizations. What we're seeing now is a lot of bottom-up requests, particularly by younger people, for emotionally healthy workplaces. A couple years ago, I think 2022, several states in Australia passed laws requiring that organizations prove they have emotionally healthy workplaces. So again, we need to nurture the people we have working. So I think the bottom-up approach, we see this in a lot of tech companies where I live in California, that because these tools are free, that they just start using them. And then at some point, I'll get an email saying, hey, we have a bunch of people using your technology, and can you tell us more about it and what's going on? So I think the bottom-up approach is really important. And for younger people, you guys are in the catbird seat, as they say. You can demand, because we're running out of humans working, you can demand things at work that I think us who are older would never think about. So creating that emotionally healthy workplace is important. And to me, it's sustainability. When I speak to organizations, I talk about sustainable organizations. How do you sustain your profits? Execute your jobs well, but also have a healthy workforce, right? Send them home healthy. I think that's very important. So you had a second question there, which now I've lost. One was bottom up.
This work from home dynamic.
Oh, work from home, yeah. So So for the data we've seen from organizations, which we've got data now for about a year and a half, so I think we've got 40 or 50,000 daily users currently, so we have pretty good data. Not surprisingly, we see the most key value moments are on Fridays. The least are on Mondays. I was talking to a tech company Wednesday morning before I flew out here. They have the most key moments on Tuesday, and I was trying to have them tell me, like, what do you guys do on Tuesday? Like, why is Tuesday so important? I think because they have so many meetings Monday, that kind of beats you down. So I'm in the world of meetings should all be optional, or almost all meetings are optional. If it's useful, show up. If we need you to be there, I mean, that's a different story. But if it's like, update, I don't know, don't show up. For work at home, we do see, we have done the relationship between key moments at work and at home. By far, people get more when they're physically in the office. So I do think this return to work focus is important. What we're seeing in the data now is for many companies, they're expecting 3 days a week in the office. And those 3 days tend to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for obvious reasons. I think that's a pretty good compromise. I think some people probably should be in 5 days a week, and other people are fully remote and can work at home. But if you're fully remote, I'm recommending that you bring your group together physically in person at least once a month. And that could be the supervisor, the leader flies in, you go to a co-working space for a day or two and get together. There's just so much more that happens when you're physically together. But I think that's my experience just working with companies, but I don't know if it's truly best practice.
Dr. Sandy has a question.
So really, really excited about your work and figuring out ways to work together. My big question to you is, I don't know if anyone's shared with you our BrainHealth Index that we use to show the continuous improvement regardless of where someone starts. Where do you think your measure fits in with something that doesn't have sort of this is what's good? Do you feel like your measure might be a good measure of if our SMART training, for example, works? If people have more key moments than 6 good or bad? Can you have too many? Or how do you see the relationship of something that looks at all the factors you were talking about together holistically to thrive versus this one that's related to connectedness? Do you feel like yours could be a measure of our intervention or ours could be a measure of your intervention?
We're really measurements. I think we could be a great measure of your intervention, and I think we should make a public commitment to do that study and actually see how they relate. Can we do it?
Yeah, done.
All right, we got it done.
Done.
That'd be lovely. So we explicitly are not focused on interventions like you are, and I think those interventions are so important. Andrew Nevin's work showing the payoff on that to organizations as well as to individuals is essential. So how about Andrew and I connect next week, and we'll talk about how we put a team together and get that done.
That's it.
All
And
right.
one more question about youth. So we have a big middle school program.
Yeah.
What would you imagine you would get in a middle school if we were to have students do that?
Yeah, I'd love to know about the middle schoolers. I do think education is evolving very rapidly with all kinds of new models, from charter schools to homeschooling to all kinds of other in-between online schools. What I think is missing sometimes in the remote teaching is that sense of community. And we've done a lot of work. Publicly, Accenture has been using our platform for 6 years. And Accenture found that flying people in physically for a training, the immersion was much higher than when people did training on their own. Shoulder to shoulder, it's harder to goof off. That's why we're all here. Thank you guys for coming. You're all here because it's valuable, right? And being shoulder to shoulder with people, we're just going to be more engaged with what's going on. So I think kids still need to be physically together to learn. I don't know if they need teachers because we have so much online stuff, maybe guides, maybe coaches. There's probably some evolving models, but they need community for sure. They need sports for sure. And I think they need measures of brain health, absolutely.
Okay,
mental health disorders, as you guys know in the data, in the young people, it's horrendously bad.
so we're going to run it sadly out of time, so we're going to push a few more questions
Yeah.
here. One online. Question about music. So how does music fit in with high-value moments?
I don't know, but I'd love to have someone measure it. It would be great.
So you don't know the percentage of high-value moments that come from listening.
No, because the data are private to the individual. So unless they're sharing it
Right, understood.
with me.
Okay, and there's one or two more questions.
Yes,
We'll take these two questions here.
I can hand it to her. I promise I'd give her a question. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. You mentioned something with regard, where on your one of your slides was something about resilience. And in terms of responsibility on the part of, only in the work area I'm talking about, given the different generational expectations that we have. My expectations when I had employees reporting to me was, you do your job, you get a promotion when we think you've done something more than just your general work. On the other hand, we've had people who explain, well, those people, are they really entitled to more money? So question is generational, and how do we build resilience? Because in younger people, we don't see the resilience that older generations have. How does that affect all of this?
It's such a great question, and I don't have the full answer for sure. And I think it's still open to some debate. But we build up resilience. We all get scarred in life, right? And you young people haven't had enough scars. You haven't suffered a lot. And so they're going to be less resilient. I think we can't expect someone who's 15 or 22 to be as, we get kind of curmudgeonly I got curmudgeonly as I got older. I'm like, whatever. But I'll just power through anything because I just don't care anymore, right? I'll just get stuff done. So I think we want to give them a break and give them the tools to help develop good brain health, to build up that resilience. Some of this is just having enough challenges and suffering a little bit. So, yeah, it's a great question. So she said, what should the employer offer versus what do people need? I think that's an ongoing conversation. But I think community is very important, and we get a lot of community at work. So if you're in a physical fight, I never want to fight fair. I want to win. So I think same thing at work. If you need pizza and beer on Friday at 5 o'clock, pay for pizza and beer. If you want to buy lunch, if people show up at the office, buy them lunch. Get them to show up, hopefully voluntarily. Maybe tell them that we expect you to be here. I mean, if the boss is in the office, people start showing up generally. So I think we need to set the standard, we who are older in leadership positions, and encourage people to embrace the community that they're in. And it's a community of service, right? Businesses, any organization is about service to others. When we understand that purpose component of business, I think hopefully young people will follow us and get some of those scars and get stronger and be resilient. So,
all right, last question to this young lady.
Great talk, thank you. I was wondering at the other end of the spectrum, when you deal with people that are in independent senior centers, assisted livings, has the app been used in those environments? Because at that age, there's a sense of loss of purpose, loss of value, they're kind of forgotten, and that diagnosis of end-of-life failure to thrive is a real thing. And there's such a connection between the mentalness of somebody with their physical. Has the app been used in any of those environments to not forget that population?
Again, what's your name?
Nancy.
Anton. What a great question. So actually our very first studies were done in retirement communities because of the gap between what people will report in terms of particularly mental health symptoms, depression, anxiety, and the actual incidence of these disorders. So my father was 93 when he passed away recently, and I call him up, Dad, how you doing? Good. He's like a middle schooler. You can't get anything out of him, right? What'd you do today? Nothing. How was dinner? I ate what they gave me. I'm like, he's not helping. But if I can actually use the app with him and see, is he actually having some moments? When someone visits, is that good? How about caregiver seeing him, right? Whatever that is, I can actually find that out. And so for people who are not really telling us because they don't want to or they can't, there's a great way to actually see what they value the most and hopefully help them thrive and extend their lifespan. So yeah, people can live longer if they're socially engaged, right? Let's help them.
All right,
And better.
Let's give it up for Dr. Paul Zach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, that was really special. Thank you. I hope you were engaged when we check in the numbers. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Last thing I'm going to say today, first off, thank you so much for everyone who came online, all our special guests today, everyone from the Center for Brain Health. We really appreciate you making time for us today. And we have a special gift for all of you. So on Thursday, May 8th, we have the researcher, Dr. Kim Gorgans, who's going to talk about brain power, mitigating injury risks, and empowering personal growth. And this is part of our Thursday evening BrainHealth Presents series on that. Normally, this is a paid event, but for everyone who comes to the Frontier Lectures, we're going to offer them a special code that they can register and come to this event for free. And it's really going to be an outstanding session. So the code that we're using is BH, like Brain Health, guest, all like no spaces, all capitalized. So BH guest on that. So please come to those. The Thursday evening sessions are fantastic, just like the ones we have here on Friday afternoons, Friday at noon on that. And we're making this available to everyone who participates in the Frontier Lectures to come to BrainHealth Presents. So, again, just finally to wrap up, we're over time. Thank you so much to the online audience that has joined us today. Thank you so much to all of you and our special guests, particularly the young people who have joined us today.
Yeah, you guys
and a
have the
special
programs.
thanks
We
to
have
Dr. Paul
measurement.
Zak. Give him one final hand, and that brings us to an end.